Hi everyone. Today I thought I'd present one of the different tools, utilities that I created when I was able to employ the web browser control to add some extra functionality to Access. In my opinion, one of Access's weak spots is the raw SQL editor. We've been asking the Access dev team for years, probably decades, to improve upon it. And instead of waiting even longer, I developed a simple, like I say, utility via the web browser control and some web browser JavaScript libraries that were already out there. And I was just able to put it all together and create a much more advanced SQL editor that I thought I'd just demo quickly today. So let's take a look at what I've done. So I developed a utility, like I say, and I posted it on my website. This is going back to 2019, so it's been out there for at least 3 years. And we're all well aware here, if you look at this screenshot at the top, of the text SQL editor in Access. And it is literally just a text box. You don't even have the functionality that you can get in Notepad, let alone more advanced things like PSPad or Notepad++. Up until recently, you couldn't even do a copy-paste. And this is why I developed this. It was just lacking. And long story short, I ended up using a library, a CodeMirror, it's called. And it's a library that does highlighting and all sorts of other things. You can go on the website, like I show here, and you can look at the examples, the documentations, should you ever want to push things further. What I've done, as I've listed here, you can actually do basic text editing, Control+A, you can undo, you can copy paste. It can highlight the active line that your cursor is on to make it easier to recognize where you are in the text. It does word matching, so you can quickly see where a term is used multiple times within the text. Just find and replace, Intellisense. It's just a demonstration of what we should actually have in Access. And I'm hoping that one day we will end up having. And just some more screenshots. So long story short, let's just download the demo. And you'll see it isn't very complex. And let's just minimize this guy. And we're going to bring the SQL editor, we're going to put it here. Let's unzip it. And the one thing you'll see, this zip is a big file. And why is it a big file? Is because although I'm only using certain aspects of CodeMirror, I didn't delete all the other stuff I didn't use. And I did that on purpose. That way, if anyone wants to explore further, everything is there, based on the data that I released it in 2019, of course. But all the other extension libraries are also there for you to explore. But if you just wanted natively what I've done, you could delete a lot of it and the file size would be reduced drastically. But I didn't want to do that initially. As you'll see here how it's organized, you have the SQL database itself, the Access database, and then I have the HTML, where I have the index file that's actually what we're working through, and then the CodeMirror library. And like I say, I just kept it whole. And everything is here intact, but you can actually alleviate and delete things that you don't really need. Like you wouldn't need to keep the demo. You don't necessarily need to keep the docs, etc., etc., etc. So if this was something you were deploying to your users, maybe you want to lighten that. Maybe you don't. Let's open it up, bypassing everything to start off with. And let's just see what we have. As you can see here, just a bunch of queries. And then I have a web browser info. That's just to check what version your database is currently emulating and things like that. Not truly important. And then you have the SQL editor, and that's what we're after here today. And if we open it up in Design View, you will see that I have a web browser control. And here, this goes and gets the queries because you're able to retrieve an existing query, edit it, and then save it or close it without saving changes, etc. So let's run this guy normally, but as you can see, it's just a basic web browser that is calling my index.html file. And this is what we get natively, okay? So we can go and pick a query that we want to work with. So let's go on this guy. And it goes, reads the SQL, and brings it here for us. Now, as I said, it has highlighting. So if I select a word, so I double-clicked on it, it will highlight everywhere that word is used. You can also see in this light beigeish yellow, it's highlighted the line I'm currently working on. Now, when you're using this, do pay attention to some of the commands I've tried to highlight here. But for instance, let's say we were doing a new query. Okay. So we're going to have to give it a name. So let's just say testing 01. Okay. Now that we've done that, as you can see, it's just throwing in some demo code. We can come here and put contacts. And here, I just want to demonstrate. You can use the what I have down here, autocomplete Intellisense, simply by pressing Control Space. And as you can see, it's defaulted here, giving me a list of all my tables. So we're working with the contacts. I could press my period, do Control Space again, and now I've got my Intellisense for all the fields in the table. So I want the last name, Control Space for contacts, Control Space, now I want the first name. And I press Tab to make my selection. And as you can see here, I can A, save it, okay, and B, I can press Run. And there's the results, because my table is actually blank. Similarly, I can press I want to edit in the QBE. And that same query has now been brought into the QBE. What's also useful with using this version, this editor, is you can actually do things like that, where you can get proper indentation and things like that, which makes it much more legible and just, in my opinion, easier to work with. And like I say, you can come down here, press Control Space, and you can look for order, Control Space, and type B, you'll get the by. You get the idea of how this can become very easy to use. And I can say by last name, okay? You see how it facilitates the amount of typing you have to do, the legibility of what you're doing with the highlighting here. You can also do things like I showed here. You can actually do a search in this. So not only can you highlight, but let's say you're here and you want to do a search, and I want to search for last, okay? So you press Enter, and there's where last has been found. And you can do Control G, and you can go between the different instances. You can do find and replace if you want. You can replace all or one at a time. You can jump to specific lines, Alt-G, and you can say go to which line. So you want to go to line 4. Okay, I'm on line 4 now. So if you've got a really extensive SQL statement, that can be very useful. You can also do things like Control-A. You can do Control-X. You can do Control-V. You can copy things very easily and bring them to wherever you want and paste them. So just, you know, this can be pushed further for sure, but this is just to demonstrate how easy it can be to integrate more functionality into the SQL editor. I was actually hoping that the Access Dev team would take it a little bit as a hint and maybe even utilize such technology to give us the extra functionality that we've been so direly requesting for, decades. But anyway, it's here for you guys to look at, to use. It does work well, and you see how it works. And ultimately, it does create the actual query in the objects, so it is always there for you. So, you know, you're not tied to it either, but in my opinion, it greatly facilitates things. And then just to demonstrate one other thing, if you try to change, it recognizes when you've made changes to it, and it will prompt you, are you sure you want to exit without saving or saving? And it's up to you. because nothing forces you. You can exit out of this at any time without committing any of your changes, or you can choose to commit your changes. You can also at any time come here and just press the save button as well. And you can also use this to delete queries. So you simply pull up the query you want, your testing query, let's say, and you just say, I want to delete it. Are you sure? Yes, and it's gone. And that's how hard it is to work with this guy. Another useful feature, I find at least, is you can, if you highlight a word, and then you select a word, and then you can quote, it will do it at both extremities for you automatically. So you're not stuck manually going on one extremity, adding your quote, going at the other extremity, adding your quote. It will do it for you in one shot. So another just time saver as far as I'm concerned. A CodeMirror offers a multitude of different libraries that you integrate into it, and that's how this all works. If you come here, and let's just look for 2 seconds at the index file, you'll see here the libraries I'm calling. So I'm using the hint, I'm using the markdown, I'm using the selection and the edit, I'm using the scroll and the search. That's where we get the Control F, the search and replace and things like that. So as you can see here, you're seeing all the libraries that I'm calling. And the syntax highlighting is actually coming from the SQL library. So this is geared towards SQL. You could have it in another language if you wanted. But just to show you, so these are the libraries I've chosen to use, but there's a whole bunch more. If you look here, you go into the add-ons. So if you come here, CodeMirror add-ons, these are all the different libraries that are available to you. So this is what I was saying when I say I didn't remove them. They're all here. Commenting libraries and this and that. And, you know, I could push this further, and I did have an example at one point on my website where I saved these to a file. And that enabled me, by having an external file, or even within a table as a memo field, I was able to store comments and tabs and spaces and things like that in my SQL statement. And then I was able to display it properly, sort of like you do with SQL Server or any other database in reality. And then I'd have to save a second version that was sanitized, where these things were removed, to be able to actually run it in Access, because Access won't tolerate those things. But just showing you a little bit of where you can take some of this. Like, it isn't hard here with the save button to create that external file where you can save all the extra things that you do, indentations, and if you wanted to be able to add comments, and, you know, it isn't hard to do. It really isn't. You save it externally, and then whenever you save, you have to save 2 copies, one that's an external file with all the details, and the local query in Access where you remove all those extra features, so it can actually still be run whenever you need to. Well, that wraps it up for my improved SQL editor. I really hope this is something, you know, new, and it shows once again just how versatile the web browser control can be for us Access developers. It really can open up complete other worlds to us and give us functionality just unparalleled compared to what we currently have in Access. That said, you know, the Access dev team has supposedly been working towards a new improved SQL editor. We previously had it on the Access roadmap. It was pulled because they've changed their strategy with the roadmap. That doesn't mean they're not working on it, but we no longer have any visibility on it. We have no clue when it may or may not come out. But I'm still hopeful, and I hope you guys are too. It would be nice to see a serious step forward with the SQL editor in Access, and bring it hopefully on par with what we can possibly see in SSMS and things like that, and truly empower us as developers. As always, thank you for spending some time with me. If you found this even remotely informative, please like, subscribe. If you can share this in any way and help me get my channel out there, it'd be greatly appreciated. And as always, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video.